Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the first episode of our brand new series here on HGH. Uh, we'll call it the Creative Spotlight, where I take a creative person and I interview them. Uh, this will just be like a nice interview, quick and to the point, like you guys have requested. And to get our usual bits out of the way, here's the rat and OJ Simpson, since we have to have one mention every episode, as per your request. Today I have a very special guest, a uh, talented voice actress and the queen of Newgrounds, Kira Buckland.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, it's good to have you on here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For our first question, since, well, I, my co-host couldn't be here due to him having uh, some scheduling issues, but uh, I am a, I personally am a writer. I publish like some books on Wattpad in my free time for like 4 or 5 years now. I'm an aspiring voice actor, as per the mic, and I like to develop games in my free time. So, uh,
Wow, so you're very creative then.
yeah, I started like stage acting in like kindergarten in Pan, and I've just been doing it ever since. My mom's a producer, and I was a extra in the 20th Century Fox film Hidden Figures.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been fun. So I thought I'd have a fellow voice actor on the show for our inaugural episode. So for our first question, I'd like to ask. This was a highly requested question in the HGH Discord,
Okay.
and uh, do you personally have any top waifus or anime or video games?
Hmm. Yeah, I have quite a few. Mika from Idolmaster, um, maybe Aqua from Konosuba,
Of course.
Mari from Love Live. Um, I feel like there's like a bunch of them. I just can't think of them all off the top of my head.
Right.
02 from Darling in the Franxx.
Right. That's I haven't gone to Darling in the Franks yet, but I definitely have to. I just have so many shows in my backlog.
Yeah, I feel that.
Hmm. Like I still have to finish like Evangelion.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Hmm.
That's another one of my favorite shows.
Right. Just like a lot going on for me, and uh, for me, for this question, I'd say like uh, a lot from like the Persona franchise. Uh, it's weird because I usually never uh, go for the main characters in the Persona series. Like in Persona 4, I went for like Yumi Ozawa. Uh, Persona 5, I was more so on. I liked I liked Kasumi, despite a lot of my friends not being on the same uh, side as me.
Well, that's all right. Everybody's entitled to like what they like, right?
Exactly. Um, Speaking of waifus, uh, a very popular role of yours in recent memory would be 2B from Nier Automata.
Yes.
Right. Uh, I'm currently playing it right now. I'm almost done with like my fourth playthrough. It's a really captivating
Oh,
game.
wow.
Yeah, it's really fun. uh, and I'm a sucker for uh, games with like or media with uh, either like Seven Deadly Sin uh, aspects or just like uh, biblical references because I think it could be neat. So I really liked Adam and Eve in it.
Cool.
So for 2B, how did it feel having to channel a character that isn't quite direct with their emotions but still comes off as dynamic?
So it was actually kind of challenging at first to find that balance, especially because I haven't played a lot of characters like 2B before that. A lot of the characters that I played were very open about showing their emotions. So I think, it was kind of the challenge of finding how much can I express. So, certain times I would maybe deliver a line like too intensely and have to be pulled back or, I obviously I play a lot of Mean Girls, so I always wanted to just go like full on with the like, wow, 9S, why are you being so annoying? But they're like, no, 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 just not quite so much. So it's kind of like I think anytime you play a character who is a little more monotone in a lot of their deliveries, you have to be careful to kind of walk that line between you want them to sound interesting, like you don't want it to sound flat or boring or anything like that, but you also can't have, it has to be more level. Like they can't show so much emotion or so much volume as some of the other characters most of the time.
Mm. Yeah, when I play the game, I definitely hear your performance, and it's definitely a because with a lot of characters of that variety, uh, I'm blanking on examples right now, but it seems that it's really hard to like uh, distinguish like between flat and like still coming off as intriguing. And
Yeah, I think it's about getting into the mind of the character when you get down to it and kind of figuring out how they operate.
yeah, yeah, operate. This that's quite literal for 2B there.
Right.
Hmm. Um, since this is a creative spotlight, do you have any advice for our audience in terms of persisting and continuing to work hard on their goals even when it's tough?
Yeah, I think anytime you go into a creative field, it doesn't matter what type of creative field you're going into. You just have to know that there are going to be a lot of obstacles, and there are going to be days where it's just really hard, and there's going to be disappointments. Because I think a lot of people feel like, okay, if I can just like for acting, for example, if I can just get like a really big role, or if I can just meet this goal that I have, or succeed in this one thing, or be the lead in an anime, like whatever their goal is, it's like that's only going to be temporary. So, it's there's always going to be, especially in creative fields, anything freelance, there's always going to be times where you're not working. Like, unless you're the absolute best of the best, top of your industry. And even then, people sometimes go through that. I've seen some of the best actors in the field still talk about, yeah, sometimes I like go a few weeks without work and I get worried, like, am I ever going to work again? And, and that kind of stuff is normal. So I think just being prepared for those drawbacks when you go in and knowing that there is going to be disappointment. You're going to try out for a lot of things that you're not going to book. You're going to maybe sometimes feel like, wow, I would be great for this. And then you don't get it. And that's a totally normal part of the business. So a lot of people say, like, you have to go in expecting rejection. But I don't like to think of it so much as rejection. I think of it, in terms of acting and casting and stuff, it's not so much about, oh, we're rejecting this person because we don't think we're right for the part. It's more, we think this particular actor is the best choice for this role. And of course, like, that's subjective at the end of the day. So it's like, if you don't get cast, nobody's rejecting you. It's just that, they chose somebody else for this role, and that's fine. That happens. It's very competitive. So I think just kind of like the other thing is to not let social media make you feel bad about yourself or feel like you're behind everyone, because social media is fake when you get down to it. It's like everyone has to post about their successes and look like, hey, I'm working all the time, because it makes them marketable to casting directors or any kind of creative field that you're in. It's like, oh, I look marketable to clients, whatever the situation is. And you're not seeing what those people are struggling with behind the scenes. So I think it's just really important to try to keep a level head about things and to have people that you can trust enough to talk to openly about the not so fun parts.
Right. That's probably can put better myself, but personally, like if I'm trying out for a part in like a play or something, I usually a mistake I see like a few of my peers make is they see a specific part and they think that, oh, this is the probably like the only part that would work for me. But you really have to keep an open mind to things and really try to like be flexible when it comes to these sorts of things because obviously uh like in later stages uh like professional acting and voice acting, you're not always going to get a part, but for specifically like our school performances, like everyone gets a part to some extent, and you should be, even if
Yeah,
they
and
cast
it
you.
is not like that in acting.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no,
and it's okay, like, sometimes, because we're human, we're all going to have, like, certain roles here and there where we're like, hey, I'm really attached to this specific part. I had something I auditioned for, I don't know, like at the beginning of this year, for example, and I was like, oh, I think I did such a good job. I worked really hard on my audition. It was a character type that I really resonated with and felt I did a good job at. And I didn't get cast. And then when I heard the final performance and who they did cast, I was like, okay, that actress was an even better choice for this part than I would have been. And, it's like, that doesn't mean I did a bad job. Like, you never know. You could have been the next runner up for that part, but just kind of understanding that it's like, okay, there's always going to be more work to be had. Like, of course, sometimes we'll see this character that we're like, oh, this is so cool. I feel like this would be perfect. But, at the end of the day, I think it's important mentally to learn to let go of that so that you can just move on to the next thing and find the parts that are right for you.
right, because I've been cast for like parts that weren't my first choice, but I was able to adapt, and even if I didn't get the part at all, I still go back and like I keep up with the projects and I still congratulate them because the people who were like I don't think about okay, so I was this close. I'm competing with like this many people. I'm thinking, okay, so we're all talented people and the director just wants like the best person for the job. That
Exactly.
doesn't mean you're bad or anything.
And even if you don't get the part that you wanted most or whatever, it's like, that's okay. It's still a blessing to be able to work. So, I know like everybody wants to be the lead, for example. Like every time people audition for a project, of course they want to be the main character. But if you're, playing this side character or you're playing background characters, like that is still something to be grateful for because you're working. How many actors, and I've reminded myself of this too, how many actors would kill to even be in that position to do background voices in this project or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, I just try to think, like, okay, I'm grateful every day that I'm working.
Right. That's a good way to think about it. Like recently, I auditioned for a project. I auditioned for a few characters. Uh, kept like kept in like steady contact with the project leader, and uh, I was cast for like a smaller part as a news anchor. And I decided, okay, uh, I can work with this. I can put my all into this and do what they want to do for this part because it's not good to be bitter that you didn't get the part you want. It's best to put the amount of effort you were going to put into the character you wanted into the character you got.
Yep, and I just talked about this on Twitter recently, but the other thing too is even if you're playing a character that doesn't have a name, for example, if you do your best on that role and you're professional and you're good to work with and you make the director's job easy, then they're going to remember that and maybe they'll have another part in mind for you later that might be the kind of character that you really want to play or a bigger part or something that you're going to have a lot of work for. And so many times it's like somebody is referred for a project because maybe they worked with a director on like a smaller part or a smaller project, and then that director ends up working on something bigger, and then they remember this person and say, oh, yeah, they did a good job, so I'm going to bring them in for this. And, so I think it's just good to try to do a good job in everything.
Right. Uh, okay. So our next question is, since have you ever heard your like a sort of unofficial nickname I've heard for you over the years is the Queen of Newgrounds. Do you know about that?
Oh, yeah, I think that started as a joke back in the day.
Mm.
Um, Obviously I haven't done any of that type of work in very many years
Yeah.
now, but it is how I got started back then, so
Hmm.
I remember it fondly for the most part.
Right. How would how would you describe your experience working on so many Newgrounds projects?
So I think one of the things that was really fun about working on a lot of that stuff is I just played characters all over the map, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that now in my professional career as well. But it's like back then there just weren't a lot of female voice actors
Right.
who did stuff on Newgrounds. This was like 2005, 2006. So I would get a lot of work just because there weren't a ton of people doing it at the same time I was. So, I just played characters from all different voice types, all different personality types. And one of the things that was fun about it was most of the time the stuff we did was animated to the voice acting, so I got to have a lot of freedom with it because right now it's like I'll do like games and stuff like that, but a huge part of my work is anime dubbing, and
Hmm.
I really enjoy doing that. But there's a lot of restrictions with anime dubbing because all of the animation is already there. Obviously, it's been animated, it's been produced in another language first,
Yeah, lip
so
flex.
we are completely restricted to what's going on the screen and what the character's mouth is doing. So as fun as dubbing anime is, there is always that you don't get to set the pacing of the line, you don't get to kind of like play around as much, you kind of have to do what the original actor did. So something that's fun about doing original animations, even if it was just like a flash animation that I did as a voluntary thing back in the day, or like a student project or something, it's just being able to kind of like lay down the voice part first and have it animated to kind of what you did.
Right. Newgrounds is definitely, I would say, in a way, it's sort of like coming back with like, even though Flash itself might be gone, like projects such as like Friday Night Funkin', like a love letter to Newgrounds itself. It's just it was always such like a broad community to me that like not uh until like nowadays not too many people, like since like 2005 or so to like before, because Newgrounds definitely had like a rise and then like a dip. Now it's like rising again. Like,
Yeah, because I feel like when YouTube came along, things kind of went onto that
yeah.
platform. And there's always a new thing, now it's TikTok or whatever. I'm like old in terms of the internet, so
Yeah,
I can't keep up with a lot of the stuff that everyone's doing.
yeah, me neither. Like, uh, a lot of my friends are into that kind of thing, but all I do is like Instagram and like Twitter, stuff like that. I'm not like
Yeah,
hip
same.
with the kids these days, uh, despite myself being one. Uh, Another thing that has to do with voice acting, what types of vocal warm ups do you recommend?
Um, I mean, I think it's easy for people to overdo it on the warm ups.
Hmm.
I've heard people say, like, oh, I warm up for an hour, 2 hours, and I don't really think that's necessary. Obviously, if you have like a really early session, then your voice is it's not going to be as acclimated as if you're doing one that's later in the day. I prefer later sessions personally, but it can be hard if you have something at like 9 a.m., especially if you're like me and you're not a morning person. So, one thing that can kind of help if you just need to get your voice ready is to just practice singing. You can sing whatever you want, but obviously, something that kind of goes all over the place in terms of the notes that it has is helpful, because then you're kind of getting your voice in all these different areas where it might normally break and stuff like that. So yeah, honestly, you can just like put on a favorite song you like and just sing along to it. Or if you don't feel like singing a specific song, you can even just search on YouTube for like singing warm ups, and there's singing coaches who will just like have a piano and take you through the different things. You can even do that in your car. I mean, obviously, we've been recording from home now because of the pandemic, but you know, another thing that people would often do is just like if they had a drive to a studio or something, you know, just like do singing warm ups in the car.
Right. I tend to do like singing warm ups due to I have done choir and I'm in the school band, so there's like a lot of stuff coming from the diaphragm there.
Yeah, and singing training is very helpful with voiceover, and even band can be helpful because it teaches you rhythm. Like I know my roommate has a much easier time than some of us doing ADR because they're a drummer, so kind of like with that sense of like rhythm, it's like okay, I can match the timing easily and stuff like that.
Right. Um, in terms of since you have a varied repertoire of characters you voice, do you prefer voicing heroes or villains? Can you do like one better than the other, do you think?
I like playing villains, or
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really play a lot of villains per se, but I play a lot of characters that maybe have questionable motives or they're kind of like bullies. And I really like playing those types of characters. You know, obviously, I don't think I'm a bully in real life, but it's just really fun to kind of play mean girls, I guess, because I feel like it's more interesting and you have more to work with in a sense.
Right. Uh, I agree. I usually prefer myself voicing like villains, but I think that heroes could be fun if I mean I've always preferred like lean towards villains when it came to media, but
Yeah, I
I
think a lot of people do.
right. Uh, especially with like old Disney films, like me growing up with, like the villains usually were tended to be like more interesting than the heroes. Um, what project do you say took the most time to finish?
Oh, well, I think it kind of depends on the type of project because something like an anime series, especially if it goes on for multiple seasons, there's going to be a lot of sessions for that. Like ReZero, for example, we're recording season two, and there's been like spin off projects like a video game and like an OVA and all this kind of stuff. So, I've done a lot of work on ReZero over the years just because my character tends to show up in all these different things. So, it's over a period of time, so you don't always know like how many hours you're putting into something. And then something like a video game, you might just kind of record like, oh, you have a few 4-hour sessions and then you're done recording for that, even if there's a lot of dialogue. But then there might be a sequel that comes back later and you get to reprise your character and stuff like that. So I don't know, I feel like a lot of projects can be long term just by virtue of like they keep coming back or there's more material to record. But anytime that you're one of the mains in something and there's a lot of dialogue, it's always going to be a lot of hours. Yashahime, obviously, we spent a lot of time on and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Uh, for our last like uniform question, I and a lot of my friends are fan of the Danganronpa series as I bought the four art books imported from Japan over the time of me liking them, and then I recently got the new 10th anniversary art books.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a very it's a very interesting series. And you voice Hyoko Saionji and Kirumi Tojo in
Uh huh.
Super Danganronpa 2 and Danganronpa V3. So, how was it to be brought
Hmm.
back to the Danganronpa series for V3?
I was really surprised for one because normally you would think like, oh, they're going to have different actors who've never been in the franchise before
Right.
play these other characters. And there was like sort of a reason for it, but it was like a little bit spoilery, so
Yeah,
I can't really go into any detail about that. But
exactly.
yeah, it was just really cool too because the character that I played was totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Because I know like sometimes people do those comparison memes like this is the same voice actor, whatever, and I know a criticism that I used to get when I was just a hobbyist voice actor back in the day was, oh, she sounds the same and everything. She doesn't have range. And I was like, I will never let anybody say that about me again. So it's just really cool when people realize that those two are voiced by the same person.
Right. It. I personally couldn't tell myself. For, uh, I can only tell with some voice actors, uh, because my first anime, way back in the day, back when uh, Netflix was still supported on the Wii, was uh, Squid Girl. So I can recognize Christine Marie Cabanos in a lot of
Oh,
things.
yeah, of course.
Right. It's a very dynamic voice. Uh, Speaking of voices, would you be up to doing a couple quotes?
I mean, sure, as long as they're canon
Canon,
quotes from that
exactly.
project.
Right. I looked for canon quotes. Exactly.
Sweet.
Um, One of my favorite roles, Marie from Skullgirls. Um, you will be a unique addition to my army.
You will be a unique addition to my army.
It's so surreal hearing it come from a Discord call, uh, instead of like
Right?
through my headphones playing the game. Uh, oh, this one. What should I do? I'm embarrassed just listening to him from Hyoko Sayonji.
What should I do? I'm embarrassed just listening to him.
Very good. And this is a very treasured quote. Uh, uh, I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle from 2B.
I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle.
Very, very good. Uh, Listen, thank you so much for being on HGH. We're happy to have you here. This was a fun time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Uh, we'll see you next time, HGH. Thank you.
All right.